everyone, Web Warrior Spider Avenger Miller here. Today, welcome back to another episode of Versus. Today, we are putting the Mrk 2.1 and the Brute Pro against each other in a battle, and I pretty much know who's going to win, but let's get into it. So going over the cons and pros of each one, starting off with the Mrk 2.1. To the pros of the Mrk 2.1, first one I'd have to say is overall build quality. I am very impressed how this one feels in the hand. It's really just nice to hold it and to use it. Pro number two, I would say the fact that you can top load off the magazine. I feel like this is a feature that keeps getting kind of overlooked. It's really cool for when obviously it's easier to sometimes top load the mags, or obviously you can just reload from the empty magazine, you know what I mean? But I do think it is kind of neat that you can top load this magazine, go in and then fire off more. I think it's a really useful feature that sometimes gets overlooked. And then I'd say the last pro is just kind of just what you get along with this blaster. You get a holster, you get multiple magazines, you get a holster for those magazines. You just get a lot for it, and I think it really just goes to show like how good this blaster is. The only cons I can really think of with this guy, the fact that these are proprietary mags, but that's kind of mitigated by the fact that you get 3 with the blaster. So obviously it's not the best, but to be honest, they could have done worse. And the fact that they give you 3 extra ones, or they give you 3 in the box, really helps out. And then the only other con really is the price. This does retail for pretty hefty, like over $100. Well, it used to. I think it's now dropped down to like 80. But the reason why it's so expensive is because you're getting it in a package deal. And that's unfortunate because the Mrk 2 came in the package deal for only $80. This was coming in a little bit more expensive, but I'm kind of glad that the prices have dropped down for this guy. And really, those are really the pros and cons of the Mrk 2.1. Now getting into the pros and cons of the Brute Pro. First pro, the fact that it does take Nightingale mags. These are much more accessible so that you're able to actually use them a lot more, and you can get higher capacity mags if you really wanted to. The next pro is Slamfire. I know a lot of people are kind of iffy on Slamfire, but Slamfire in a blaster like this is pretty useful, just doing it from the hip. And it's overall pretty good. They could have done worse with it. And then the last pro I'd say is probably just the fact that you can swap out your spring for a stronger or weaker one, depending on what type of game you're going in. But now getting into the cons. This trigger is the worst trigger I've ever used. Second pro, con is this magazine release is not the most intuitive. It's very hard to sometimes strike it right. And I'd say the last con, or if I can say anymore, is the prime action is not the smoothest in the world. So it is a little hefty in a little areas, but also the fact that I guess another con, this thing is very hard to aim with. It's mostly because the iron sights are in the priming handle itself. So it's very hard to get a proper sight picture because with how I have the blaster kind of pointed right now, my barrel is kind of pointing down. So to correct that, I have to mitigate the iron sights and just kind of try to hold it straight. So there's that. Now let's get into performance. For the testing of this guy, we are going to be using some Worker Gen 3s. They're just kind of the most accessible half-length dart you can get, and they'll give us just a nice little decent velocity over the chronograph. Now let's hope the light in here won't mess with the chronograph. 124, 142, another error, 117, and another error. So with worker darts, that's another thing with this kind of blaster is it doesn't really like to perform very well with it or consistently, but the blaster shoots at an average around 150 FPS, which is about standard for what this thing can do. But now let's see if I can get better performance or more chronograph data with the 2.1. 106, 107, 143. I just smacked the chronograph. 148 and Did you clip that? I'm pretty sure you just clipped that. But as you see, a little bit of inconsistent performance with the Mrk Gen 3s, so now why don't I get some Dart Zone brand darts. All right, now we have some Nitro Shot Plus darts. Just gonna see if those make performance a little more consistent, but also to show kind of some cross compatibility. 163, 128, 135, another error, 138, and then 163 and 155. So as you see, this does perform roughly around 150 FPS, but that I've noticed that is only with the Ember darts. With a lot of other darts, this is a little inconsistent, but in some areas, this is actually relatively consistent, so I'm at least happy about that. Now with the 2.1. 155, duplicate 155, 144, 147, 154, and 157. Oh, we got one more. 145. So as you see, relatively consistent around the kind of 150 area, but I do know with the darts that this was included with, which were just the standard bamboo darts, this does perform around 162 FPS, but as you see, relatively consistent around the 150 and 40 range. Again, apologies because some of those darts are used. I'm trying to work on getting fresh darts, but money's become a little tight. But pretty consistent with both, even though a lot of inconsistencies with others. Alright, so with that performance in mind, which one do I think is the clear winner? I'm sorry, but it is the 2.1. I wish I could have given this one a little bit more positive review, but this thing, even though I hear that this is still the prototype model, why would you ship a product like this? This has so many issues, and as you see, it's very hard to sometimes get the shot off. And I don't know why, but it seems to just always be giving me a tough time. It makes me miss how Dart Zone used to be, like with some blasters like this. Yes, this was expensive, but this guy worked amazing. It bums me to heck and back that we don't get this kind of quality of like assurance every single blaster that gets released. Like even with when they were still doing the Pro line when they first started, every blaster was still doing pretty decent. But now we just kind of yearn for the day that this kind of stuff comes back. But I do think the Mrk 2.1 is a lot better than that one. And obviously there are better pistols, but obviously if you're deciding between this guy and that one, even though that one is $25, I highly recommend just getting this. Like wait until it goes on sale or ask for it for Christmas, but this one will do you much better than the Brute Pro. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you happen to like what I do here, please like, hit subscribe, and leave a comment telling me what you liked. And please subscribe. We are getting so close to 1,000. I cannot stress that enough. But much love, blast on, and stay tactical.